Bryce, what are you doing?
Trying to, game.
What?
This game is really hard.
Pac-Man?
Yeah.
Dude, you're supposed to be playing the game for next week's episode of Arcade Bookshop.
I mean, I will. I'm really close to beating this.
Right. And what about the book?
Huh?
We're supposed to finish a book for the podcast too?
Oh yeah, I finished that last week. Yes!
Oh, did you finally beat it?
Uh-huh. The first level.
Oh boy.
Listen up now, we can leave on. Get ready for Arcade Bookshop. With your ball, we play a game, check it out. Don't be lame. Listen up now, we can leave on. Get ready for Arcade Bookshop.
You can listen to new episodes of Arcade Bookshop every other Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your pods. You'll always find us with a controller in one hand and a book in the other.
Do you think there will ever be another major cinematic event that rivals the Marvel Infinity and Endgame? I mean, not just those two movies, but the whole run leading up to it, like everything.
It'd be hard. Like it would have to be something like a Lord of the Rings or something like,
Lord of the Rings was the closest to that.
Yeah. But it would have been like, maybe taking like some preconditioned like series or something and making it into a movie or something like that. Or if DC could ever get their shit together and do it themselves.
A proper version.
Yeah. Because like I said, that was over a decade in the making.
Yeah, I mean, the storytelling, and there was a few duds in there, but overall, the storytelling that led up to Endgame, it just made you care so much about almost every character because they all had their own movies. You were invested in all the characters and their lives and what was going on, and they brought them all together.
Right.
And then they fucking killed half of them, which is a bold move. And then it's like, hey, we're not going to have another movie for a while.
Well,
how long was that gap between?
Well, actually, it wasn't even a long gap because it was one of the Spider-Man movies came out shortly after that.
True.
So
but that was set before, right? Before the snap.
No, it was after because it was like Peter dealing with like the death of Tony and seeing like his picture everywhere and stuff like that. Because that was like because that's the one with with everybody coming back from the different universes and stuff like that.
That was after Endgame.
Yeah.
Let's talk about before Endgame.
Oh, before Endgame. Well,
the gap between Infinity to Endgame was like that you had to wait because there wasn't any.
There was like Captain Marvel, I think.
Captain Marvel's the one saying that's why they said it did so well because it was like the big movie
in between. Yeah, the movie that was in between. Because like a lot of people were saying like there should have been a break after Endgame.
They should have let it settle.
But then when you got a big corporation like that, then make
it billions of dollars. Actually.
Yeah,
but they should have let the dust settle.
Mm-hmm.
They should have let people just been able to take in everything that happened, so it had some stakes,
right?
Because like you were just saying, I think off air is like, oh, they're just bring them back anyway. Like because talking about people being dead, they just bring them back now anyway.
Well, and they're doing like the multiverse stuff now, so it can be different
infinite version.
Yeah. Because like the I feel what the quote unquote problem is now with a lot of the stuff is like none of it after Endgame, all the shows and the couple movies they had aren't really like leading to anything or nothing that you can really see right now.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I'm a fan of also having just some kind of good standalone things that don't have to worry about tying into everything else. But I think that's where they're having their issues now is that everything for almost a decade, 15 years led up to this moment. You did it. And like, it's just like, well, how are you supposed to top that now?
Yeah. And can they even replicate it?
Right.
Let alone top it. Can they even just have something something that can equal not just money wise, but can just equal that storytelling way? Yeah, because all the favorite characters are pretty much gone.
Mm-hmm. And they don't want to recast the characters, so you can still use them.
I mean, they could bring if they did the X-Men, they can start over pretty much with just the X-Men, not necessarily just the other Marvel characters. Or if they did the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, that's what they're kind of hoping will help rejuvenize some of the stuff, is bringing in the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and, all that stuff that they got from Fox, and hopefully they can, whatever they're doing with Sony, and have more Spider-Man movies that Marvel is making, and not like the fucking shitty
Morbius.
Dude, did you fucking see there's something probably worse than Morbius coming down? They're doing a fucking Madam Web.
I saw the trailer for it,
and it looks awful.
It looks fan made.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, and I'll go see it because I'm
because you're stupid.
Because I'm stupid, and I'll just and so that way then I can tell you guys why it's so goddamn terrible. But it does not look good at all.
I've fallen off. I don't watch really any of those movies anymore. I did watch all the Guardians movies because I like the first two, so I was like, I'll watch the third one. And I really liked that one too. I liked them all.
The third one was so good. Like,
it was really good. So like they still were capable of making these fucking movies. I enjoyed the Spider-Man movies, and that's probably about it. I mean, obviously I'm probably gonna love Deadpool, but that's almost a separate thing.
And then that's another thing that's like the big debate with that stuff is like with the Guardians, you had James Gunn doing his thing, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they just let him do his own style versus the Marvel style.
And other than like Jon Favreau for the first couple Iron Man movies, and what's his face for the Russo brothers for like the Captain America movies, and the last couple Avengers, and Joss Whedon for like, you can't tell me like who's the director for like the second Thor movie.
Most of it's very formulaic. I mean, they what's his name? The New Zealand guy.
What Waititi or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he did like the real like Ragnarok. I really liked. It was funny, but then I didn't watch the Love and Thunder, but I heard it was over. It was just too bad.
It was too much. Yeah.
And then they had who was the other one? Sam Raimi.
Yeah,
they let him come back, and he did Doctor Strange, and it was almost good.
Yeah,
it was like I liked the visuals and what was going on, but I didn't really care for the movie.
You could tell it was a Sam Raimi's movie just by
the cinematography
and the way that it was filmed, but it didn't necessarily feel like a Sam Raimi story.
Still followed the Marvel formula.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about movie like just having one-offs. Like Logan's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Because that was a really good movie that was very unique in the superhero genre, as it wasn't really a superhero movie. And it was fine. Just it doesn't need a sequel or a prequel. I mean, technically it had prequels, but it was a sequel to the other Wolverine movies, but not really.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that. I like when they do movies like that. But you don't really get that too much. Like we talked about, Joker was really cool. They did then sequel. Musical.
Yeah, and not like a fucking sequel with Lady Gaga in it.
Yeah, I was like, No, I do want a sequel to Robert Pattinson's Batman.
Yeah.
Detective Batman. I want full detective, not young detective Batman. I want like he's good detective now.
Yeah. He's a little bit more seasoned now. He has a little bit better. Because I did like that a little bit in the first one of like a Batman quite not knowing exactly.
Figuring it out.
Yeah, figuring it out.
I want Brad Pitt 7. But Batman.
That's
what I want.
With a little Robin running around, just this little kid that has to deal with all this fucking horror show.
Yeah, that could be fun. But anyway, we got to get to this episode.
Super late.
We should have made this the episode, but we got to hurry this up now because again we're running late because I have a good reason. I've been writing, Spencer.
Writing? How dare you?
But we'll talk about that in I don't forget how long the intro is, but 37 seconds.
Some seconds.
You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me today, Spencer, the Guatemalan gobbledygooker church.
Oh, gobbledygook.
The old gobbledygooker, huh? That's a good classic throwback from the 90s, not the 80s. That was the 90s when everything was cartoony and stupid.
Yeah.
Hector Guerrera, I believe, was the man in the gobbledygooker suit. R.I.P. Hector Guerrero. He was a hell of a wrestler and should not have been playing that gimmick. Today, Spencer, you know what I want to talk about?
What's that?
I'm touching my knob. That's what I'm
Oh,
talking
yeah. Touch some knobs.
about. I feel like your knobs, I'm touching in the wrong way.
I've been saying this for quite a while, Caleb.
Jesus, now your knob got touched too hard. Okay, so I think we talked about this before, but we could talk about it again. Burnout, man.
Burnout.
But I'm having a more mature burnout. I'm
yeah.
having a different kind of burnout. So you've asked me, Caleb, how's the Divine Comedy going? How's Don Quixote going? How's the fucking any of this reading shit going? Poorly. But not for the reasons it used to go poorly. I would say once every year and a half, 2 years, I hit a spot where it's just like, oh, I fall off the cliff and I don't even feel like reading anymore, right? That is not what's been going on. I want to read and I enjoy the time I do read, but I've actually been just more preoccupied doing other stuff.
Yeah, busy doing
writing stuff.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of writing, though the burnout it hits me after work. So when I get home the night, it's really hard to write or edit or do anything. So that's where my struggle's coming in. But it's not the same kind of burnout I used to have where it's like, I can't do nothing anymore. I'm not going to the gym. I'm not fucking reading. I'm not writing. Can't even watch TV. Can't even touch my dinkle. Can't do nothing. No. It's the kind of burnout where I'm just like, I'm really tired. But I have the drive.
Yeah.
So we were talking off air about our writing progress, and you finally got your fucking bitch ass up and writing. You just did a submission today. And I did a submission today. Not the same submission. So that's progress, man.
Yes.
I finished a short story today.
I've started another short story for another commission yesterday.
Very nice. But here's the thing. How do we keep this train a-rolling? How do we keep from the actual burnout coming in and fucking wiping us out, reducing us to ash, and just leaving us a wasted human?
I think what we need to do is be more proactive as we've been with finding these places that we really want to submit to. Because I feel like that has, at least for me, helps of like, yeah, I should be writing because I should be writing. But when now, like, I have a goal, and then there's also a deadline for that goal to be set to make sure that it's submitted by, which I, feel helps.
What really got me motivated was this last submission I did was it was one that it's a theme submission and it's updated. So you only have a certain amount of slots that your story, like if you're writing your story on a specific theme, you only have a certain amount of slots available.
So you want to get it in there.
In my case, only 3 slots, and they update it so you know what's getting filled. And all of a sudden, mine went from 3 open slots to just 1 open slot in like a couple days. And I was like, well, I got to finish this fucking story or I wasted my time and then I'd have to reconfigure it for a different theme. Don't want to do that necessarily. So that's a good motivating factor. I think it's really important to find, whether it's journals, anthologies. See, my thing is like the literary journals, they take so long. And I write stories for them, but I don't write them specifically for them. Sometimes I come across a contest that has a theme, and I'll write something for that. Or I come across a journal or magazine that wants a specific story, again, a theme. So maybe if the idea suits me, I will write something for that. But I find the anthologies have been really getting me because you get motivated because there's other people in them that you can actually, like, at least the ones we've been submitting to, that you could talk to these people.
Yeah.
Or you could find out their, like, for Horoscope, I was in, I'm in a group now with all the other writers from Horoscope, and they're always talking about their submissions and what they're doing. I was like, well, fuck, I'm a little competitive, so I'm like, I'm fucking do more than them. They're doing this. Why am I not doing this? You know? And I'm not one of those competitive people that I'm not happy for you if you succeed. I just like, I want to succeed too.
Yeah, I want to be up there with you.
Yeah, so I think that's been helping a lot. The reading thing, the main problem is I just, I was reading Don Quixote and I was loving it. And then I finished book 1 and then I had to read that fucking Zone 1.
Yeah.
And that fucking derailed me because I hated it so much. It derailed me. And then I was like, I got to pick up steam again. And I started reading Don Quixote and it's just like on and off. I just couldn't really focus. And then it's like, well, now I'm behind because you and Bryce are reading the Divine Comedy, which I didn't even start. So the other day I only made it to like the 2nd canto or whatever, but it's just like, God damn it. This is a big fucking book too. So now it's like I got myself in a bit of a hole and I still haven't hit my yearly reading goal that I set. And I'm not going to hit it now, but I'll get close. But it's just like, because I still got Paradise Lost next.
Yeah.
And that's a fucking...
And is that the last one out of the big...
No, then I have the biggest one is Ulysses.
Yeah.
Well, the most challenging one. So it's like, God damn. And I got the Cambridge edition that's, the size of my
is
torso.
that what you're going to actually read?
Yeah, I figure that's the best way to understand it. I bought a specific stand so I could read it. It's like one of these things for the laptop thing, but way bigger. So I need to get my shit in gear with the reading, but now that I just finished a story and I do not have another story idea that I'm going to be working on, hopefully I don't see anything that tickles my fancy for at least a week, because I still got my novel I need to get back to. I took such a long hiatus on it because I've been doing all these submissions, but I feel that now that I have a little bit of wiggle room writing wise, I can get back to just like an hour straight of reading every night, because that's what I used to do is I'd read an hour or two a night. But lately it's been like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then I fall asleep because, again, the burnout.
And then you can still put like, you have you put an hour of reading aside, but you can also put like an hour for your writing of either for your novel, if you don't find any other places you want to submit to, just to help keep the writing flow going as well, because then you don't want to, because that's a struggle. You don't want to get into you were in a good writing flow, but not a reading state. But then you don't want to get too much into good reading and then not get any writing done.
Well, that's where I was for a while, where I was reading a lot. Yeah, that's just last month, I was reading voraciously, but I was not writing very much, if at all. I found what helps me lately, we were talking off air, is I've been writing on my phone a lot more. And it gives me the same feeling as when I was, just writing my novel by hand, because it like no Grammarly or no distractions, and the spell check's not on there. Like, cause I'm just, and mainly the thing is like, an idea comes to me, and if I'm at work or something, I just take a quick second and just write down the idea, or, that's a good sentence. That's a good, and then I found I was able to get a 5,000 word story out in a couple weeks by just writing in that style. I mean, it's not ideal if you wanted to do something very quickly. Because it's a longer process, but because generally when I'm writing, I like to write in chunks. Yeah. But I found that like for some of the short stories, at least, that's helpful. It's like it's the total progress that really matters, and then like the editing phase is usually where I shine anyway, because that's what I really write. Like the first draft is just the skeleton, so I'm just like trying to get it together. But once the puzzle pieces are in place, I can really fuck with it.
Right, and I'm saying then too with that on your phone too, like if people who are like might not be into that, it could be like a good way of at least getting like the bare bones or the outline of whatever you're working on. So then at least then when you go to actually work on it, you have that to go off of, and you're not starting from scratch, because as we stated before, that's one of the hardest parts is the getting started phase.
Yeah, you can fix a shitty story. You can't fix nothing.
Yeah.
Like, if there's a blank page, you can't fix that. But if you wrote a story, even if it's just the guy walked down the street, he saw a dead body, the body burped and gas came up and blood came out, like, whatever it is, you can work with that. But you can't work with, if there's nothing on the page. As this year winds down, I am happy. I for the first year since I think we've started this podcast, I'm excited to do the yearly recap.
Yeah.
Not for the book stuff, but for the writing stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Like to be able to, talk about like, what my goals were for the year. This is the first year. I was like, I might actually hit them or close to it.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Or maybe not hit a goal that you might have had set, but accomplish something that you didn't even think.
Yeah, I've done that too, but we'll wait. We'll wait for that. That's our New Year's. But I want to get more writing done anthology-wise, I think, because that just seems, not just because it's working, but that just seems to be the best motivator for me right now. Yeah. Because the literary journals, it's just like, even if I get accepted to something, I'm just like, a lot of them are online and I don't really give a fuck. I want print journals.
And I feel like that's a good networking skill as well.
Yeah.
Especially of like these people who run their own thing. And if we, and they've all seemed to be nice people that we've come across stuff so far, not knock on wood. So like you said, that helps with the community. So like if we ever do, like in the past, we were talking about doing our own collection or anything like that, that now we might have
some avenues to go down.
We not only that, of like questions of like, if we have a question about something, we have people that we might have that could help us answer those questions or prepare us, for things down the line.
No, fuck, at this point, we've made friends with publishers and whatnot. We could just might be able to get them to do something. But No, fuck, what was I going to say, Spencer? Butt sex, trophy wife,
Wives.
big tits.
Tits.
Tits. Did I say
Tit-
tits?
tits.
Said tits. Tits?
Tits.
Tits? What about the tits?
Tits.
27 minutes later. Tits? But here's another thing too, like going back to just the anthologies and even just some like going through indie presses and stuff, and mainly this just goes straight to genre fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I've been published by some literary journals, and nobody's reading it. It's almost like I just published it myself on a website nobody goes to because I don't hear anything. Like one of my stories, it got some feedback, but it's one of those sites where it's almost like mandatory that the people on, because it's like a writing community site. So it's like, oh, they always try to give feedback to every story. So I was like, that's not real.
Yeah.
So to be able to actually hear positive reviews and read positive reviews on Goodreads of one of my stories, like that's what I got with the horoscope, is people are actually reading that and buying that.
Well, then you've also had your story mentioned in, what was it? Wasn't it on Amazon? Like reviews of the thing? Like your stories got brought up and stuff like that.
Yeah, my story got brought up as one of the favorites of multiple people's reviews.
Well, and I think what that is because I think like with like the genre stuff, is that way you getting people who are reading that are just fans and enjoy whatever genre that it is that you're writing in, to where whenever you get to like the literary thing, I feel like that's almost like writers and trying to impress other writers,
artsy people,
or editors or what, like, you know what I mean? As we said before, the whole like smelling your own farts kind of thing.
A lot of that stuff, the fart smelling and all that, what it usually boils down to is a gaseous vapor. What it usually boils down to,
that smells of sulfur,
is if you have a name, people like to say they read that work or they read that story because it's from that name. Yeah. So they go, oh yeah, I read I read Colson Whitehead. You know, it makes you, it's like going old school. I read James Joyce. Like, oh, you're a snobby intellectual, basically. So that's where a lot of that comes from. It makes you wonder if they even like the work. Or they even care about the actual work they're reading, or they just like to say, I'll read the New Yorker, I'll read the Paris Review.
And that's if they even actually read it instead of just having it.
Yeah, I think a lot of them just have it, or maybe they scan it. But the anthologies and the genre stuff, like I get real feedback from it, from people I don't know. That's an important thing, people you don't know. But also what's important is the people we do know who don't read literary fiction, because I don't know anybody other than some of us, you know, like me and Bryce and Ashley and you, ever read literary fiction, really. So we actually can have people read our stuff and want to read our stuff because it's a genre thing that they like. So,
and if it is like a literary fiction that we are reading that people may like, it's older literary fiction, nothing any new.
And the thing is, I mean, it's not like I write in a literary style necessarily, but I don't write in a genre specific style. So when I get accepted into these genre things, I do get to have a little bit of a literary flair that usually has my work stand out slightly above some of the other ones.
Yeah, it makes you, like you said, stand out or a difference.
It's different. It doesn't mean it's better. It's different. So like a lot of the people...
better.
But like a lot of the people that, you know, in the reviews I read that liked my story, a lot of them mentioned the way it was written, the style of writing. So I was like, that's cool, because that's what I'm going for. So I have that to enjoy, and I would like to touch on some sci-fi next, because you know, got the horror out of the way. The thing I just submitted was fantasy, so maybe the next thing you submitted to a sci-fi anthology, I think, or no, it was a website.
Yeah, it was a website,
magazine or something. But that was a while. That was last year, I think. But yeah, that's a tough one to get. I thought, you know, horror is kind of a tough one to get into as well, because there's such a big market. But then the same thing, when you have a big market, you need more content.
Yeah.
So it's hit or miss. But sci-fi, I don't know. I haven't played in those waters enough to know if I could really swim. You know, I don't know if I am a good enough sci-fi writer to be able to make it in, because I have the ideas.
Yeah.
But can I write that style? Where one style I know I can write that I would really enjoy, that I messed around with but never really got into, was like noir stuff.
Yeah, right. Crime.
Because that's fun and it's easy to write, because it's just a lot of shoot you in the face, a lot of jerks and, you know, big pants up to the nipples. And my only problem is when a lot of times I tap out of a noir story, I start and it doesn't go anywhere. Not for the mystery. not because of any difficulty in the writing of it. Where I fall, where I fail is the time period.
Yeah.
I always want to revert to before cell phones, before technology, old school noir, because that's the stuff I like to read, and it's easier to write because, you don't have the stupid contrivances of, he has a phone, he could just call someone, or modern noir, like a Nicholas Obregon style noir. I find that's challenging.
Now, would you consider that noir or just crime?
Crime noir. I mean, that's what his books came up on when I looked him up on the...
Because I just almost feel like noir is like part of noir is that old time setting.
Well,
like, you know what I mean?
But remember, you have like cyberpunk noir too. It's like the atmosphere, not so much because Sin City.
True.
Sin City is written in a way where is it modern or not?
Yeah.
You don't actually know. It feels more modern, but then like the cars they're driving and the way they're acting and the weapons they're using, you're like, wait, this is 30s? Or is this the 2000s? Like, you don't know.
Oh, like a great version of that is the 90s Batman animated series.
Yeah.
Because they had like those old cars and cell phones and buildings, but there's blimps but there's also kind of cell phones sometimes. And like it's like, what's going on here?
What's happening? Is there a computer or not a computer? It's just like, I don't want to use that as a crutch because I know a couple authors who they refuse to write anything after the 90s, like time period wise, because, I just like to write stories set in the 80s or the 70s. I was like, that's fine. But is it because you don't know how to handle the technology and how it affects the plot points? Because now you always have to work around that. How do you do that in a natural way? I find, like, even in my novel, I was like, I realized that I did not include cell phones into the beginning of this, and these are supposed to be 20-year-olds now.
Right.
What the fuck? I didn't mention any kind of social media.
As my friend's son who just turned 11 got his first cell phone.
That's late for a lot of kids.
Right.
So that's where I come up with, like, a lot of the stories I write, I just don't even go into it thinking of time period necessarily, unless it's, like my fantasy stories, ancient times, or sword and sorcery stories, this is set then, or sci-fi in the future. But a lot of just like anytime I'm writing something that just comes off as contemporary, I always go, wait a minute, I didn't even use any kind of cell phones or anything. As I'm writing it on my computer or on my cell phone, it's like, why didn't I incorporate this at all? Is it strange for the reader to read this story and not have those elements in it? I think it would be for young readers. For people like us, maybe not.
I think it would be weird if you don't make somehow tell them or show them like that it's set into an older time period.
Yeah.
Like if you have them not using that stuff, like the technology, but without finding a way to let them know that it's in a time where it's not as usable, Well,
the way I go into it is I just don't mention it, and I don't mention it because if it didn't exist in this world in this time period, why would it be a thought? It's not.
True.
It would make sense for me to be like, and there weren't computers because it was the 80s,
Well, I mean, just as in maybe because sometimes people when they're starting things up, they mention of the summer of 86, you know what I mean, or something like that. But
Stephen King does that a lot in his stories. He'll just mention the date real quick, and then there you go. That's the easy way to do it. Another thing that I think is funny, because this is something we've both talked about before. How weird is it still, for some reason, mainly just probably because we both read older fiction generally, and even by older, I mean even just like 90s, early 2000s fiction. How weird is it when you read a story that incorporates YouTube, TikTok, they mention these things, like, what? This is, I don't, I always have a reaction, like a guttural reaction to it, like a visceral reaction where I'm like, oh, TikTok. And then I'm like, well, that's a thing that exists. Why wouldn't that be in here?
For books, it's weird. If for books, I've noticed it. I don't have so much a reaction. For me, though, it's whenever it's in comics and they try to have it's YouTube instead of, because they can't say it's, YouTube because of the copyrights or whatever. But, they try to have a Twitter or a thing or something on there. And it's just man, for some reason, I feel like it ages more poorly in the comics and stuff than it does in in prose work for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, do you find in your stories you tend to either incorporate cell phones and social media, or do you tend to just ignore that? And if you do ignore it, is it purposeful or you just afterthought, like you just didn't think of it?
I mean, I can't really think of a story so much where I've used it, but again, like I don't think it has ever been like purposely like. I like to think as if I was writing something, I'd be like, oh well, maybe I could use this cell phone, or maybe if I do, I'm just like, oh, the cell phone's dead.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
He's always dead. Well, it's like my novel.
Or out of service or something. Which, you know what, isn't a far stretch for how shitty cell phone companies are now that to just randomly be out of service or something.
That is true. Well, like my novel, that I mentioned like, oh shit, I need cell phones in this. It doesn't make sense. These kids aren't using cell phones. I'm just sitting there thinking, it's like, yeah, I have to incorporate text messages in here because that's how couples talk now. That's how I talk with my wife most of the time. That's how we communicate is we fucking text each other when we're not around each other. We don't call each other. I'm not sitting there going, well, I got to send the missus a telegram real quick. Got hit by car, stop. At hospital, stop. I need you to pay the money. Stop.
You should start sending text messages like that, just because like I'm imagining Mindy might not even know what telegrams are, so she have no idea what you're even fucking doing, but it'd still be funny just for you.
It would. Well, here's a sickness. This came up a couple weeks ago. Maybe you sent it to me. I saw some videos and I investigated because it's what I do, and it turns out this is a thing. The new generations think that there's something wrong with us for using punctuation in our text messages. They feel that it is like us scolding them or being too formal or something. Like just for putting like a period.
Really?
Or no, I don't even know about the emojis, but just saying, like, hey, I'll pick you up later, and you put a period. They find that as a microaggression.
Why? How? What?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, are you look it up, people. I'm not making this up. Like,
I mean, I could see like you put like a whole bunch of like exclamation points,
no.
like like that, like Elaine from that episode of Seinfeld, but like just by like having like a period or like a comma, it's a micro, just because they don't know how to use a period.
I don't know. And then that's the funny thing is when I was looking it up, it's like, okay, they don't want you using periods. They think it's a problem for whatever reason. But then, like, their excuse is, well, language evolves. Why, though? Like, why are you not using punctuation? Is that what school's going to start teaching soon? It's like, don't use period. Is that what books are going to become? We just don't use punctuation? Because now we're just with some postmodernist assholes again, where it's just like, run-on sentence forever.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, like, how, is it just one long sentence, or is it, like, a sentence, a message?
It explains modern poetry, don't it?
I fuck if I know, dude.
Do you use commas and periods and no punctuation, just everything, just line break, fuck off. Do you know what I'm talking about? No, because it's line break, eat a dick, line break. I was line break in at the mall and line break, shitting my brains, line break. Sorry, that makes me mad. But the text message thing, I was like, is this, a lot of it I was like, is this for real, or are they just like making up controversy? Because a lot of places make up controversy, but there was enough backing, people backing this idea, this notion that periods and
I don't remember sending this to you, so you must have stumbled upon this by yourself.
I flipped a biscuit.
Yeah, because like
as a writer, it offends me. As a reader, it offends me, and just a human who has some intellect, it offends me.
Because, like, sometimes, I mean, like, I'm not all the time, like...
It's fine not to use them in a text message. Like, oh, be there soon, or just okay, no period, whatever. It's like, hey, meet you at the gym. You don't have to have a period. We know what you're saying. It's, communication...
But like, anytime if I'm writing, like, a bigger...
periods.
A bigger message, I do try to... Especially now, because, like, there's fucking... Most cell phones now will fucking... tell you when you need to put like a comma or a period or a question mark in there now anyway.
You have to go to your way to misspell words and shit.
Yeah.
But I don't understand. Like, okay, I get the whole, like, it's fine if you don't use punctuation in your text, whatever. That's what you want to do. Who cares? It's the fact that you think it's like aggressive if someone does.
Yeah.
Or it makes them old timey somehow. It's like, who gives a fuck? Why are you? That's one thing I always wonder is like, why do these people focus so much on this shit? Like, you don't have anything to get upset about now, so periods and text messages is what's doing it for you.
So it's like it's the younger kids that are...
I believe so. The ones who think millennials talk too slow. I didn't send you those messages or those reels either, but...
Which is funny because, like, when we were younger, it was always slow the fuck down, you ADDP, like, you know, like something like.
Well, it makes sense because their videos that they watch have a time limit.
True, yeah, it's
Like if there's like a 3-minute TikTok or whatever.
that's long.
Yeah, like I think Reels does it too. They have like Instagram TV or some shit. Like they have longer form versions. Because I remember, like, sometimes I'll catch one on like Reels, and I'm like, this has been over like a minute. How's this still fucking going?
Right?
Like, what the hell? Did somebody fucking make a movie on this thing? So I can kind of understand like if that's all you grew up with is like the Vine generation to the TikTok generation.
True.
It's like everything's real quick and snappy. So when they have their story time videos, it's like I have to talk like this. I have to tell you about when I go into the supermarket. Can you believe the guy got shot right in the face? And holy fuck, it was amazing. But then I guess the millennials would be like, I went to the supermarket and it was like dreary out, and I had a time I don't like want to listen to my wife tell a story. It's like you don't need that many details. And then you know who I ran into? Barb. From where did she work? What's her birthday again? What year was she born? And they're like, no, I guess the fuck is she part into the story? Not at all. Not even in the story. Fuck Barb. So anyway, that's my piece. I think period. I don't know where we started, but I don't think periods in any kind of punctuation used in text messaging is offensive.
No.
I will stand and die on that hill. I won't die on any hill. There's
No.
very few hills. Maybe none. I might even climb the fucking
Imagine
hill.
if you started like throwing like semicolons and shit in there.
I will do that if I befriend a Z or Zoomer. I think Zoomer is the perfect name for them because these Gen Z have turned into boomers.
Yeah.
Like they're just
Like
very,
a weird version of boomers.
Yeah, they're just like the bitching about millennials talking too slow. Like they just bitch about the stupidest things. And it's like you're just a boomer, but with the Z.
Well, so like I just said, my friend's son had his 11th birthday party the other day of recording of this episode, and so like
Happy birthday!
Yeah. So some of his grandparents and stuff, because they're older, they got him a birthday card, and stuff, and would actually write into the birthday card, and like somebody asked him, oh, like what's it say? And he's like, I it's in cursive. I can't. Like,
Yeah.
And then like, oh
Dude.
wow. And but then I think like,
It's like writing in a different language to them.
yeah, but then I go and I think about like, I do also have sometimes trouble reading things in cursive, you know what I mean?
Depends on the person's handwriting.
Depending on the person's handwriting, and be like, what's that letter supposed to be again? Because like, like outside your name that you just gets burned into your brain on how to write. It's like, how often are you using that?
Well, look, I'm writing my novel in cursive, and I'll admit it. I don't think I do the Z's right.
Yeah,
I
like,
just don't do. I do the fucking what was it? Billy Madison Z. Just like
it's just a squiggle.
it's not right.
And then like my mom will like write me like a note like on a sticky pad or something, for me or whatever, and will fucking make me think I'm having dyslexia or something like that, because like I will be in cursive. And then the beginning, like the W of will would be in print, but then it's cursive IL. I'm just like, what's going on with my brains and my eyes right now? Like
W-ill.
yeah, like what's happening right now? Like she'll switch from cursive to printing, not only from word to word, but sometimes in the middle of a word. Like just, my eyes. Like what's going on?
That's just poor penmanship. So Spencer, that's where we are.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, that's where we are. I guess we can end it. We talked enough. That's enough talk for today. Read, write, do arithmetic, whatever you gotta do.
Closing in on 40 minutes. That's a.
Oh man, my back hurts. Ooh, that feels good.
That feels real good.
Real good. In summation, punctuation's fine. I don't fucking these kids today, man.
And what was the thing that we talked about in the beginning of the episode?
Yeah, kids are jerks. They stupid and they smell like farts.
No, it was about
Writing.
after the Marvels. Oh yeah,
Who cares? It's over.
Yeah.
We're done.
They're at the end
If you want to check out stuff
and things.
at DPW Podcast, just Google it.
Google.
You can go to just CalebJamesK.com. I got a website. There's stuff on there too.
Things.
Spencer Church, I don't even remember your name. The Guatemalan gobbledygooker.
Gobbledygookin.
He's gobbledygooking. Is that a verb? You can gobbledygook?
Well, you have to pay to find out.
You have to pay to gobbledygook. We thank you for listening. I'm going to go eat a pound of meat. The heater's blasting, so I don't know how loud that is. But thank you for listening. Next week, I think we have an actual guest.
Again, for the people who are a fan of guests.
Yeah, I would announce him proper, but I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he is doing the 90th anniversary of the Lone Ranger, I believe. So when he listens to this episode, he's like, those fucking guys.
Goddamn assholes.
To be fair, we've been getting inundated with guest requests, so it's like I get them mixed up a lot. But then once I talk to you, I remember you forever.
Yeah.
Except for one guy. He knows who he is, but I don't.
Hey, Caleb, you wanted to see me?
Ah, Spencer, my good fellow. I've been expecting you.
Yeah, so did you want something or
Want? Goodness, no. Require.
require?
Yes. I require your services for the briefest of moments.
Okay.
Surely you can see the predicament I'm in.
Well, actually, no, I can't. I lost my glasses at the pub last night.
A pub, you say? Surely you can't be serious.
As serious as a fought during a recto, because I am. And stop calling me Shirley.
Rightio. Anyway, if your spectacles were affixed upon your face, you'd see that I, the host of the most prodigious writing and books podcast in the business, has been immobilized by a rather substantial stack of fallen folios.
What?
My to-read pile finally fell on me while I was taking a nap.
But you're on a podcast table.
I hardly see how that matters.
And you're naked.
I hardly see how that matters.
Dude, your hairy ass is touching my drink coaster.
I hardly see how that matters.
It matters to me.
Can you just unbury me?
No way. Your reckless reading got you into this mess.
Blockhead! Wait! Don't go! There's a copy of War and Peace wedged in my taint. Spencer! Can you at least leave me a bottle of whiskey? Hello? Can't get enough drunken nonsense? Listen to new episodes of the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast every Tuesday wherever you get your pods.